Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a chat with Anita and Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hey, Anita, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing
So
great.
today we're going to take a slightly different tact. We were talking about this before and realized that it's really helpful for us to tell our stories about how we came to decide that these dark psychology or these marketing tactics that felt icky to us, how we discovered that we weren't comfortable with them, and then what we did to make the transition over to where we are now, which we don't quite have a term yet for the opposite of dark psychology. So we're just calling it either positive marketing, me too marketing, happy marketing, relationship marketing, whatever it might be. But the point is, we want to just take you on a bit of that journey. And the reason is, I know for myself, when I hear people's stories, it's all about self-identification. So hearing someone else say that they struggled with this or felt that too just makes me feel that, all right, A, I'm not alone, and B, if they could overcome this, then perhaps I can too. So this is why we thought we would start this episode with a discussion about how we made that start and to where we are now.
Yeah. And
You
maybe I
want
should
to go,
define.
Matt?
Well, I'm just going to define a term. We'll
Okay.
probably talk about dark psychology, and
Yep.
those that don't know that term is something we've been talking about. It's considered all those tactics that we probably all know. If you've been doing any online marketing for any period of time, we could probably recite them together, right? Scarcity, urgency, everyone together, authority, reciprocity, social proof. And those tactics all come from a single book that was written in 1984 that compiled all the psychological practices and studies from the 50s and 60s, studies that were so heinous we can't do them anymore. Like universities are forbidden to use these psychological tactics, yet they were compiled in a book, and then the online marketers took them and said, here's how you influence people, here's how you get people to sell: social proof, urgency, scarcity, and the rest. So when those feel icky to use, when you're using those high pressure salesy tactics that use those particular methods, there's a reason it feels icky. There's a deep psychological reason why those feel wrong. And so Anita and I have been talking about alternatives to these that are great alternatives. They also use psychology, but they don't rely on the icky high pressure psychological tactics. So yeah, why don't you kick it off? Tell us how this started for you.
I certainly were. I certainly were. I certainly will. And you know what? So you gave like a list of feelings, and that's how we make decisions, right? Learn about these things and then you implement them. And if there's something that really aligns with who I am and my values and my beliefs, it feels really comfortable. But when it's incongruent with my values and belief system, then it feels like you described, Matt, icky. It doesn't feel right. I'm not comfortable. And so I've been in this journey, 2.5, almost 3 years now into the digital marketing online world. And when I first jumped in, I really had no clue about how to differentiate between methods and who was respectable in the field and who wasn't. Like, I had no clue. So I took my first course, and it was about local lead generation for local businesses. And I built these websites, and you're doing this, you're doing that. And then it got into some stuff that I really didn't feel comfortable with, but it was part of the course at the time. So I overrode my feelings, set everything up the way they suggested it, and then realized, like, I hate this. I really, really hate what I'm doing. So I would say 6 to 7 months, I was in that business before I finally decided I can't take this anymore. This does not feel comfortable to me. I feel like I'm lying to people. And it was what's called gray hat SEO. So white hat is your above board. Black hat is all trying to game the system. And gray hat has shades of both. And
well, how bad is that? I mean, you're trying to attract people, attract an audience, yet you feel like
it was horrible. And you know what it showed? I struggled to sell. I think because it was so at odds with my belief system that it comes through. amazing when I can pretty much sell anything if I really believe in it. And I'm not the only one. I think most people are like that. If your whole belief is in it, we as humans can pick that up versus when somebody's trying to con us or bullshit us or whatever it is, then, like you get a sense, you get a feeling. And I think that was coming through. So I sold that business, got into something else. Again, it was with somebody. The webinar I watched was being promoted by a black hat SEO guy. So no surprise, it had a lot of these psychological tactics that you were talking about, Matt. And I started creating the second business and got those same feelings of, I don't like this. And one of the first things they had us do was to create a webinar. I hadn't been on too many webinars by that point. So when I created my own webinar, I thought I did a great job. I really put a lot of work into it. Like, probably took me a couple weeks to do because I just had no practice at it. And you know what I discovered? And it took me some time once I actually got it up and running and promoting it. There was no content to it. It was all smoke and mirrors. That's all it was. It was like really vague statements, a lot of hype, a lot of emotion, a lot of like rah, rah, rah at the end. Smash that button or smash number 2 if you think this is awesome, kind of like. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. I don't want to be doing this. I felt more like I was at like a sales conference or something like that, where they're going to pump you up before you go out the door to make a lot of sales.
But if you question it, the gurus would push back and say, well, this is how you sell. This is what sells people. This is what works.
You're right.
And then you're like, well, how are you to argue? They've been in online marketing for years.
Got it.
You've been in for months. So.
Yep. And that was the whole point, is who was I? How could I go when they have millions of dollars and there are these huge names? But it was my feelings told me that I didn't really care if they were right or wrong. It's not what I wanted to do. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the transition over, because I was speaking with a friend of mine. She's in Australia, and she was saying that there was a woman there who was promoting, I can't remember what the product is now, and she was doing webinars. And what she'd do is she would lay everything out in the webinar, and at the end say, hey, if you want to buy my course, then this is a lot of what you'll get. There's a little bit more that I have, withheld, but this gives you a really good idea of what you're going to learn. And if you want it, buy it. And if you don't, that's okay. And I was like, what? So like, it just seems so foreign to me. Like, what do you mean? No scarcity, there's only so many units, or no false urgency. You got 15 minutes before this all disappears. And she was so confident in just, if you want to buy it, great. If you don't, you don't. And she really just respected where you were. And I watched this webinar, and honestly, I was speechless, because it was the first time I had seen an actual example online that went against everything that I had been taught and aligned beautifully with what I was looking for. And I really wish I knew who she was, and if anybody knows, I think maybe it was Penny something, thank you to her, because it was her webinar that first showed me that there's another way to do things. And when you hit across something that aligns, it just feels right. And like deep within your core, as soon as you encounter it, yeah, this is for me. And I'm so grateful that I watched that webinar.
I just wrote down Penny. I'll have to look her up. And
yeah, I know. Excuse me. I'll ask my friend and see if she can remember, because it was like a few years ago now. So fingers crossed. We'll give a shout out to her.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Matt,
well,
why don't you tell a bit about your story with it?
Yeah, I mean, it starts the same, the icky feelings and stuff, but it's maybe a bit different in that I'm a psychologist. I've taught psychology for years at the university, and I came from, I think, a successful career as a professor and a business owner. I ran a business for 12 years and sold it for a lot of money, and I ran a national lab, and so I had all the success. Then I come to online marketing and put all that aside. Said, oh, that's well, the online marketing gurus must really know how to do this stuff. So I just focused on them, and I set aside everything that I had learned in running companies and managing people and selling. And, you know, I mean, at the time, I think at our peak, we were selling over $1 million a year for a small company. That was a lot of money, but it's like, oh, that's the old way. That's like real life. This is online marketing. They must know something new. But how it occurred to me was after a while watching this, I'm like, they're using psychology to sell, but they're using it poorly. They're using it wrong. This isn't the psychology that I teach. I can understand that they're using the principles, but they're using them wrong. And then so as I'm watching this go, it took me forever. I'm like the slowest learner on the planet, but I started to think through, like, why would this work? And then from a psychological perspective, this can't work. Doing this sort of tactic in this way couldn't possibly work. Why does it work for them? And so I really struggle with this. I must be doing it wrong, or I'm not learning it. Maybe I got the formula, the formulas. Maybe I'm doing these hacks and methods wrong. And so I was really on the edge there until through some connections, I've started to hear from some of these gurus from their inner circles. And the message was the same. The gurus' numbers are falling. They're not getting the conversions that they used to. They're not getting the sales they're used to. And I'm like, that's why. I thought they were getting these huge numbers that they're boasting about. They're having all this success that they talk about, and they're not. And I was like, perfect, because they shouldn't. Using the tactics they are using with the audience that they're dealing with here in this age, in this year. This isn't 15 years ago in the wild west of the internet. This is a much more savvy audience. These tactics shouldn't work, and by golly, they don't. And that's how it all fell into place. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. So then I started looking deeper, talking to more folks that knew gurus, and the message was the same. And all these tactics, I think we talked about one in a previous episode about how the gurus would say, on the date your cart closes, you have to send everyone 3 emails.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why? Well, because it works. But why? Like, where's the data? It works. And you're just supposed to take their, work for me, and it worked for my other gurus. And then they say, you have to email people 1 hour before the cart closes. I'm like, why would you do that? You have to do it because it works. People will buy in the last hour. And so a lot of this is just on faith. It works, and work for me, it's going to work for you. Well, then I discovered through 2 different folks who do the marketing for the gurus, 75% of people who buy in the last hour wanted their money back within 30 days. Yeah. And I'm like, that's exactly what should happen. So it was putting me on edge, because you have 100 years of psychological research in science of this foundation, and then you have the gurus doing something different and saying it works. And I couldn't reconcile these two until I realized the gurus aren't telling us the story. It doesn't work. And so the science is correct. So that's when I kind of went on this kind of mission of, let's bring in some real science, some real data, some real research, some real psychology that we know works, and offer that to people instead of following these 15-year-old tactics that were just built for another generation that no longer work.
Yeah. I so agree with you. I did the same thing. I also come from an academic background and just discounted everything that I learned, and I mentioned my feelings too when I was learning this stuff, and just took it on faith that, well, they're the gurus, they're making, like you talked about, these huge numbers of sales. Well, that's just, gross volume net. You know what I mean? It's gross sales. It's gross sales. But what's the net? And if 75% of people who are asking for a refund who signed up in that last hour, well, that actually says, I agree with you, that it's not working. And we're starting to hear that now. But in the beginning, it was all about the hype. You can be a millionaire overnight, all of that kind of stuff. And some of that stuff I kept away from, but others, again, like when I created that first webinar, I didn't really clue in until, about, 6-8 months later, that the original webinar I had watched by this guy whose course I bought had 0 content in it. It was all smoke and mirrors and testimonials from his students who had, went from, now that I look back, they never started from 0. They already had existing businesses, and they just took it to a whole new level with some of the stuff he taught them. Yeah. Whereas he was really promoting the program to people who had no business and then were looking to become multimillionaires like those people in his testimonials. So it took a little bit of time. And then it was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to use these at all. I watched that one webinar and then I was like, but what am I supposed to do? And this is why, again, Matt and I are doing this, is to try to get a movement going where people can come and share their ideas that are alternatives to what we've been taught. So in that vein, Matt, do you have like one suggestion that you can give that you use that is helpful in, let's say, the dialogue and taking someone from, who might not know who you are to, becoming a customer or a client of yours? What's one thing that you use that's different, an alternative to those models that we've been taught?
Gosh, I mean, one thing, eh?
Yeah, just one.
Well, I guess one would be just treat people like they were face to face, like you and I right now. If I were trying to sell you something, I wouldn't. I wouldn't use these tactics on you. I wouldn't say, all right, Anita, I've got these, great, wow, look at this, a Detroit Bad Boys coffee mug. Wow. You don't see these anymore. This is 100 years old. You better get it now. I have, 3 of my buddies have bought these. It's like magical. It's like, it just makes the coffee taste great. And you better buy now. Oh, wait a minute. It's you only got 5 minutes. I'm not going to sell it after. You could buy it tomorrow, but it's going to cost you 3 times as much. The stuff that but you ask the online gurus and they're like, oh yes, that's how you must treat people online. You have to give them these outrageous subject headings and all that. You have to email them 10 times. And they say, this is what you must do. And I'm like, based on what? And I've talked to these folks and they're like, oh, based on the data. But they won't show you the data.
No.
They won't show you their numbers. And when I have seen the numbers through other people, it's exactly what you would think. They're not good. A lot of these gurus that most people listening, they would know their names. They are on the edge. I won't say they're on the edge of being broke, but they are really hurting and they're getting frantic. But they don't portray that. They just keep using the same tactics over and over. And I think that's to their detriment. They need to come up with some new strategies. And I think the good psychology is part of it. And one of these things, like I'm saying now, is just how would you treat people face to face? If you're trying to sell them something, we all have knowledge and experience and background and talents and gifts that we need to share with the rest of the world. That's our whole point of being on earth. We have something to share with the rest of the world. And how do you do that? How do you find people that you can help with what you know? And to just do it the old fashioned way. Like, this is what I know. I don't know how to teach you tennis. I can't teach you how to be a good parent. There's about 500 things I can't teach you, but I can teach you about surveys and I can teach you how to get better customer feedback with your surveys. That's my thing. It's my superpower or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And here's how it could help you. And a lot of people are going to say, no, thanks. I already know how to do that. Or I don't think that's important. But there'll be some that say, yeah, I'd like to hear more about that. It's just kind of the old fashioned way of how do you say things face to face and then translate that into your online marketing, into your messaging. I don't know. I mean, it's just one tip, but it's just, I always keep that in mind. If I'm writing something, I'm just pretending like they're standing in front of me. What would I say to them? How would I react? And it's usually far different than anything you read. I mean, we all read the emails that we get from all these folks emailing us 2 and 3 and 10 times a week. That's not how my friends talk to me.
No.
No. Not at all. Or when they pretend like they're being one-on-one with you and it's a mass email. There's just something about that messaging, the way people react, that's different if they're face to face. So that's one method I use.
And I'm actually going to pick up on that, Matt, because I was thinking the same thing.
When drink from my Detroit Bad Boys.
Yeah, I've got something about coffee and different levels you're supposed to have in the morning. Shh, not yet. And okay, you may speak. The irony, of course, is that I don't drink coffee and I don't even drink my tea first thing in the morning. So this is my water mug. But getting back to that, I ask the same thing in my mind. Would I do this face to face? Would I speak this way to someone face to face? One of the ones that, and I'm going to talk more in depth about this. I just wrote a blog article about it, and it's about using email for free downloads, free content that you are offering. So we'll see, free download, free mini course, free whatever cheat sheet. You go to click on it, and then up pops something saying, give us your email address first. And then you can have the free content. We will email it to you. Now, I want you to think, if we were face-to-face and I had a booth at a conference, let's say, and I have a little sign that says free candy, and you come up and you want to stick your hand in and grab that free piece of candy, and then I yank it away from you just as you're about to reach in and say, you have to provide an email address first.
That's funny.
Like you would be appalled. Who would ever do that? Nobody. But yet we do the exact same thing online because it's faceless. We don't have a personal relationship with that person, and somehow think that that's okay. And if you think it's an extreme example, it's really not, because for me, my email addresses are private. I only want the information coming in from people that I want to hear from, not because I want to necessarily, I don't know yet if I want to hear from you or not. So like most people, you make up some bogus email that you can use just for that purpose, so that you can keep your primary email private and very much sanitized from all this spam that's coming at you. So I'll put actually a link to the blog article about this, because it goes much more into it. But that was one of the first places where I had to really consider, and it was all based on what you said, Matt, this face-to-face. Would I do this face-to-face? Would I offer something for free and then yank it away and say, hey, you got to give me something first before you get that for free? Well, that's not really for free then, is it?
Yeah.
Right? It's not.
And
but we call it. It's what?
I say it's just one of those techniques that used to work. And I think this is the thing, as we were talking before, in the wild west of internet marketing, anything worked. But taking those same techniques and using them year after year after year. Unfortunately, we weren't there at the beginning of internet marketing. We're here now in this age, and what used to work just no longer does. That's just how it is. I mean, things don't work forever. Any technique or method doesn't work forever. It's ridiculous to think that things that worked 10 years ago will still work today. Yet that's all the gurus have. It's like, this is what we have. This is all we have. And we're just going to keep teaching you. We're going to leave our online courses up for you guys to learn the same mistakes and keep applying this. And the rest of us are suffering, because anyone that opens their inbox knows what you can predict what the subject heading is going to. You know exactly what you're getting, and we don't like it anymore.
No. And the point with this is this has become such a standard practice that nobody even questions it when it happens. Like, it's actually shocking when, let's say I ran an ad to that particular article and people click on it and it takes them directly there. To the download. They click on it and the page just opens. There's no email. There's no nothing. You just can consume the content immediately. Then at the bottom, I ask, hey, if you want to receive more of these, or whatever it says at the bottom, they have the choice then to provide an email address or not, once they've consumed some content from me, to see if they want to hear back from me. Right? Like, I just hate it that I need to provide an email address first when I have no idea if I want to hear from you. I don't even know that what I'm getting is going to be useful to me. I'm going to enjoy it, or it's just, going to be pure crap. I have no way to evaluate it until I see it. By then, you've already got my email address. And, I just don't always want to be hitting unsubscribe. It's frustrating. I don't want my inbox just clogged with this stuff. So I make bogus emails. Yep. I'm not the only person to do it. I'm sure most people do. You got one or two accounts specifically to sign up for these free downloads until you determine, whether you want to continue the relationship or not with that individual.
Well, I mean, isn't that interesting? You remember Penny from a couple of years ago, because she did something so unusual. She did something different than what all the gurus are teaching and the tactics of the day. And that would be my advice to people right now. Why not do something different from the tactics that are being used now to get attention? That's the whole point, right? You want to get eyeballs, you want to get people's attention. Why not do something different from what everybody on planet Earth is doing? The gurus are saying, oh, this is how you get attention. This is how you get eyeballs. This is how you get engagement. And we're all doing the same thing. Why would that work? Why?
Yeah.
Purple cow, Seth Godin, purple cow, be the purple cow that, oh, wow, there's something surprising. Somebody treated me like a human. Wow, there's something surprising. Somebody gave me something free without strings attached. And you will be remembered and you will get their attention. How easy is that? Just do something that's not the dark psychology tactics and rely on what you said. You know, it's self-serving now. Why do we put these opt-ins and ask for email? And why do we use these subject headings? And why do we A/B test with this? And why do we open the card at the, why do we do these things? We've always done them. There is no reason. It's just what we've always done. And that's no reason at all. Things change. Everything is different today. Look at social media, the way people use it and act on it, and bots versus messaging, and everything has changed. Everything continues to change. Yet these tactics remain the same. 15 years later, here we are using the same exact tactics, the same formulas. Do something different and you'll be noticed. Yeah.
I'm actually really excited. I'm excited that things are being forced to change, because I too am tired of this. I'm tired of, excuse me, having to be deceptive in order to get something that may or may not be useful to me. Like, that's awful. I don't like how that makes me feel. And now it's to the point that I often won't even take a download because I just can't be bothered, because they just offer it to me for free then, genuinely for free, no strings attached, if that's what you're saying it is. And so it's changed. It's really changed. Now, I wasn't like this, but a year and a half, 2 years ago when I first started on this journey, but I've really embraced it now. And it excites me. It excites me to see where we're going next and the new ways we're going to develop relationships with people, besides just being deceptive right out of the gate. This is free. Oh, no, it's not really. Now you can have it because you provided me with something that I wanted, i.e. your email address. So I'm loving this. I think it's great. It's time. It's time for the change. Any final words, Matt?
Just one thing I just thought of that, the sense that this isn't just for new entrepreneurs, people new to online marketing, because I've heard this now. I saw it myself a couple of times, and now I've talked to two different folks who said exactly the same thing. If you think about, like the old timers, people that have been around for 30 or 40 years, like Tony Robbins. Yeah, I'm not talking about him. I'm just using him. Somebody who's been around for a long time, that used to be like the motivational gurus and the inspirational personal development folks have now in the past few years realized that they have to get in with online marketing. They have to catch up. They were old school, selling their books and their seminars and, that sort of stuff. So they've turned to the online marketing. And I've heard from a bunch of folks that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Why would they do this to themselves? Because I used to love listening to them, and now I'm getting 6 emails a day and buy this and buy that. And I've even heard from a guru who I really respect. I'm going to get in trouble if I say any names here. I'm trying not to.
Careful, Matt, careful.
But somebody I really respect, I followed them for a long time. Well, they had hired a team to do the online marketing stuff. So while I respect this person who's doing everything well, has always done well, they've hired a marketing team that uses dark psychology tactics. And you're like, oh, what, and you're just like, I can't believe they don't know it, but they don't, because they're like, well, this is what, the online marketing people are like, well, this is what you use here.
This is what you
These
do.
are the tactics you use. And it's just tarnishing them. Yeah. So even the biggest of the big, the names we would all know, who now, through no fault, they don't know. They're just like, oh, this is how you do this. They're getting tarnished. So it's everybody from the biggie bigs to, those just starting up. So I think that's how damaging online marketing is. And it's such a shame, because people who are in marketing love marketing, and they want to get the message out, and they want to, engage people. And yet it's all being sullied by just using the same tactics that have a terrible origin, dark psychology tactics. And the knowledge is just, well, what else is there? Well, there is something out there. And that's what we've been talking about in these episodes, and we'll continue to talk about the good psychology, stuff that works just as well, if not better, without the ickiness
with it. And so to summarize, we've talked about our stories, and I think it's the feelings. Go with the feelings. If your feelings are like Matt talks, he likes the word icky. I just feel it's out of alignment. I feel there's some sort of disconnect between my values and my beliefs and what I'm being taught, or these tactics, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. I just go with that as my guide. When I'm writing things, anything from blog articles to website copy, to, it doesn't really matter what it is, asking myself that question: would I do this or say this if we were face to face? Would I act in this way? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. Keep listening. Again, we want to build a movement here. So we want a community. We want people chiming in to come up with different ways. What's working for you? What's not working for you? We will be producing these every week. And so you can come and definitely put your comments below. Matt, where can you be reached?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, for now, let's just put, if you're in YouTube, put the comments below. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there quite a bit. Just look up Matthew Champagne, the survey guy. You might have to put surveys in there, but you'll find me there. We're going to be turning this into an audio only, so you might be finding this on a podcast by this point. But let's keep the conversation going. If we can help just, one person with that realization who's on the edge, like, just be able to push them over the edge and say, look, if you only knew that this isn't working for the gurus, would that make a difference? If you only knew, what we've known, because we've spent all the money on all these courses and platforms and methods and hacks and formulas. If somebody can benefit from all the money that we've spent on this and all the time wasted, I think, on this, I would really, feel good about that if we can help some other folks in their own decision making.
Yeah. And that's my goal too. I'm going to pop wherever you have to be consuming this content that we've just put out. There's going to be a link to that particular blog I wrote. So if you want to learn more, you can go there. I'm on YouTube at Anita Toth. Also, anitatoth.ca is my website, and same with LinkedIn. And I think that's it. I really feel good about this. I'm hoping that it, like Matt said, one person, actually, I hope there's more people who go, hey, that resonated with me. And now I feel better knowing that I'm not alone in this, and that there are other ways that I can do this that align with who I am. And for me, it's also about really having strong relationships with people right from the beginning. Not being deceptive right from the start, get my free download and, you got to give me something first, but just being open and saying, here, this is what I'm offering for free. Have a look at it. And if you like it and you want more, then sign up. So I think that's it. Matt, thanks for another great discussion. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. We always have some really good thoughts bopping around. So that's it from me, Anita Toth, and from
Matt Champagne. We'll see you next week right here.
Yep. Take care. Bye.
Bye.